1 Samuel chapter 28 in the King James Version. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together, and came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life, to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thy handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused, and said, I will not eat. But his servants, together with the woman, compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour, and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Okay, there is a lot here in this chapter. Sermon upon sermon upon sermon upon sermon. The first portion. This is where Israel, the nation of Israel was during this time. This is after the period of the judges. This is now Samuel has passed away most recently. However, remember what Israel told Moses, and then even into Joshua, that the Lord is their God, their Lord is their Redeemer, the Lord is their shepherd. Go on and on. They would not worship anything else. They would rely on God, and they would set the wickedness, anything that went against the Lord's commandments and rules that were set in place. They would set those either destruction or set them out from them. So why is it that Saul's servants knew about where this person, spiritist, was? Remember, Saul is the leader of Israel at this time, and he is the reflection of the people. Let's read in verse 7. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. So these things that were to be either utterly destroyed or completely set from Israel and not to be tracked or not to be even cared about, Saul's own servants were like, oh, well, yeah, we know somebody. Fairly quickly. That's a problem. That shows you where Saul was. He was no longer requesting guidance from the Lord. He was no longer being used. His salt had left him. He no longer was being able to be guided by the Lord because he didn't want to be guided by the Lord anymore. He wanted to use his own thoughts and feelings. So what did he do? What did Saul do? In verse 8, and Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me up whom I shall name unto thee. He was going to request for Samuel, the prophet, someone he knew, or he thought he knew, to help, because he no longer was being answered from the Lord. Why? Well, Samuel himself told him why, that you aren't doing what the Lord commanded you to do. And remember, it even says here that in verse 18, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. But who was doing it? Remember, we just read that David was doing it. David was going and fighting against the Amaleks and the rest of the Amaleks and the other Canaanites that were in the land. So bringing past to present, doing the most. In this case, doing the most was doing the least. He wanted to press that easy button. He wanted to figure it out himself instead of continuing to rely on the Lord. In fact, at this point, he stopped relying on the Lord. Yes, he was anointed. Yes, he was ruler of Israel. However, he started letting his own thoughts and feelings, so much so that he himself was now blocking and not wanting to hear from the Lord, but now seeking someone else. Maybe Samuel, the prophet, will tell me what the Lord has for me, because he's ignoring me. But who's ignoring who? When even Samuel himself said, you've not been following any of the commandments that the Lord God has given you. He put you as ruler of Israel, and now look at the people. They even know where spiritists are. Are they worshiping me? Is the nation actually worshiping me? Or is there issues bringing past to present? Well, we can look at our life. We can look and see, are we seeking the correct things? Are we, when we come into those issues, are we seeking the correct things? Are we looking through books about people's commentaries and opinions? Are we seeking each other? Yeah, absolutely. The Lord can utilize people, absolutely. But are we focused on seeking what the Lord has? Or are we trying to justify an opinion or a choice or a decision that we have already made? And in this case, Saul was trying to justify a decision by going up against the Philistines that he had already made. He wanted confirmation from Samuel, and Samuel was like, absolutely not. So think about that. Before we go on, though, to point number 2, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read all this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think?